Hello, and welcome to Wine with Women with me, Helen Stanyland, where we get to talk with the most amazing women over a nice glass of wine. And today we've got a special birthday edition for a celebration for the first birthday of the WRN, the Women's Rights Network. I think that this network has been an inspired idea. For years, women have been networking on Twitter and Facebook and sort of going to meetings, Fair Play for Women meetings and sort of seeing each other in the pub. But this was a superb idea to formalise all of that and get women together locally. And so today I'm talking to its founder, Heather Binning.
Hi.
Cheers, Heather, cheers. Welcome to Wine with Women. I'm going to pour myself a nice large glass of wine.
Yes. Cheeky little rosé, just for you.
Excellent. So Heather, tell us, how did this all get started?
Okay, Helen, like everybody else that's probably watching, most of the women across the world, getting increasingly angry at seeing what's happening, either in real life or it's happening to them at their work or to their families, kids, etc., coming home talking about it, or like me, it didn't directly affect me in that way. I was just reading things on Twitter, seeing what's going on, and thinking this can't be right. The magnificent Magdalene Burns, I think originally piqued me all that time ago. Watching, then getting to know you, watching you, Graham, and all these other things. And just as one door takes you in and you see all these other doors and, oh my goodness, you just can't cope with them all open at the same time. It's just an onslaught. So really, really frustrated, donating what I could to crowdfunders, buying books, supporting writing, seeing what's going on in my local authority, for instance, here in London, what the state of play was here. There was Shirley in Scotland. Many of the people watching will remember Sister Flo, also known as Shirley, up in Scotland, who did a call out for people. I think she originally thought for people across Scotland who were going to gather in Glasgow. There was going to be a court case. And lots of people wanted to go to kind of not quite protest, but certainly rally around that court case. And I was able to. I have an ailing mother up in Glasgow, so I went up there, coincided a visit up there with that, went along to Glasgow Green, met lots of people. It was fabulous. It was a great do. Shirley didn't run the event, but she certainly helped coordinate a lot of people coming along. Now, the idea of women locally meeting had already been fairly well embedded in Scotland, but a lot of people from England had started answering Shirley's call out to say, we'd like to come, or we'd like to get together in a shopping group, it was called then. So for some people who don't understand the reference to shoppers, when we sometimes call ourselves shoppers.
It took me a while.
Yes. And so we were under, it's quite obvious now when you understand the whole thing that it was to keep us under the radar. So lots of people. So I started in South London, at Wimbledon, where I live. There were no takers. Merton, my borough, there were no takers. South London, I put a call out on day 3 and got completely inundated. And by the end of that week, had set up 12 groups across London.
In 1 week?
In 1 week. And yes, it was astonishing. And the lovely Josie J. Lowe, she goes by on Twitter. She made the mistake of saying, "Do you want any help?" And I said, "Yes." This is getting out of hand now. So then, a week later, it was all of London. And then Shirley came to us and said, "Look, I don't know the geography of England. There's all these groups starting. I don't know where to go. Can you guys take it on? You've done London." So we took on England and Wales effectively, from her. She concentrated in Scotland. It then grew. That's why the EW is in our name. Sometimes you'll see the EW at the end. That's from the very early days. Then, before you know it, a few months later, Northern Ireland wanted to come in. So we removed the EW, became Women's Rights Network. And of course, once we're Women's Rights Network, there were other people in Scotland saying, "Can we be part of your network as well?" So now we're UK-wide. the idea was to allow. I had got such a buzz from meeting and talking to people, Helen, and you've talked about it often, and you've referred to going down the pub, and it's not always down the pub. Your particular one might be always down the pub, but just to talk, to support each other, to work out what are the particular things in this area that we might need to concentrate on, hospitals, schools, and when it comes to Queen's Story Hour, of course, having local groups there set up is really beneficial. And to, I thought, what do I now need to do, having started these groups going, and they're growing, more and more people were joining every week, more and more people were joining. And I thought, I need to do something, provide them with some sort of information or some sort of resources to start using. And so we did that. We started putting a newsletter together with this is the information around, this is where we are, this is who we are. And that has grown hugely because it's been so well received, and other women stepped up, fabulous women stepped up. Can I help? Or I would put a call out and saying, we need editors to do things, we need people to work on a website. And they've donated hours and hours of time. Everybody has. There is not a penny paid to anybody that does any of the work for us. It is
contrary to all of the accusations of all of us making loads and loads of money.
Contrary to all of the accusations, it would in fact have cost a fortune to have set this up as a corporate entity with money up front. It would have cost a fortune. The amount of hours, women hours that are put into this from excellent women. I mean, and I really can't stress highly enough. We've got the most fabulous people and people on the web team, and it's not just their own hours that they're putting into it, but a lot of it is their own, resources. They're bearing the cost of maybe not huge costs, posting something or. Their own broadband, for instance, and all these things are beneficial to the network, but they're committed. They're, it's a single target that we're going after. I don't think it's going to. I know we'll cut to the end of it immediately. I don't think it's going to go away because our eyes, women's eyes, have been open to so many issues. That we're guilty of having, that we get accused of domesticated zombies and all these awful words, and in a way when you look at it you think that's right, because I thought that was all sorted. I thought I couldn't do anything to impact surrogacy, for instance, or the porn industry, sex work issues.
Totally agree.
I knew it was happening, but I didn't think I had anything to I could do anything to help in that fight. I think that's completely changed now because women.
I think it has.
The power of women, that you've used that phrase, of getting together, of coordinating. So I think the best thing is that we've done is we have allowed women to coordinate. Nobody has to do anything. So if you want to write this letter, here's an outline draft letter. You can do it. You could tweet this hashtag. You could read this story. You could write to your MP. And we'll help you do that. We'll pull all that together but it's not mandatory. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. And, so for instance, if you've got a Tory MP, write to your Tory MP. Now, some people might think, well, I don't want to do that because that's, Conservative Party. I don't support the Conservative Party. But the idea is this person who may one day be our Prime Minister. And so we do have a way to influence that, and there's been some fantastic results. So we have had, our voices have made a difference, and that coordination of voices has made a difference.
It's been the most incredible thing. I've been so fortunate to have joined the Southwark branch here, and it's so active, such a load of excellent women, and it's fun as well as it's impactful, it's empowering, and just the ability to pick up the phone, or just if you're leafleting with someone else is very, very different to leafleting by yourself. You get that courage. The Respect My Sex campaign. Despite the fact that I speak about this openly, I was a little bit wary about going around the streets, putting leaflets through letterboxes. But I teaming up with a couple of other women. Suddenly, there's power in a union, isn't there? Safety in numbers, power in a union, and also it's fun, and you can stop for a coffee halfway and have a chat.
It's a coffee now, is it?
Yeah. Well, it was at 11 a.m. Sun wasn't quite over the yard arm. but I think you're right. I mean, one of the things, when I was considering what to talk about this evening, one of the things that really, really occurred to me is that this is much bigger now than just the gender ideology. This has brought us into the fight, but we've realized that we have become complacent, and we will never rest on our laurels again. This will go on and on. This will be the Women's Institute without the flower arranging. It's more, it's more sort of, it's political. This is a political, but also networking and friendship organization of women. And, we will have to carry on.
We have to, and I'm quite sure. I mean, some will fall by the wayside, but and to come back in. I mean, the thing is, with women, we're juggling our lives, we're juggling our families' lives, and sometimes we just have to take time out, and we can't be at the forefront. That's happened with me in the last 6-7 weeks now. I've had a back seat, but the women that we've got in the network are so good that the thing now is able to continue. There was a long time when it was really just me and Josie J-Lo, and then she had to leave for personal reasons, and it was just me again. So really, for about 6 to 9 months, it was me 24/7. And my family were going, "You need to get a life." But actually, it was my life, and it was enjoyable, and it gave me drive, and it gave me something to get up in the morning.
Yes, it helps. I mean, it helps give you some part of your life, doesn't it? I mean, you're more than just, carer, or you're taking your kids to school, or even, just going to work. There's something else. And I was thinking about this. I think we touched on it earlier. My father has been very ill recently. He's terminally ill, and it's been very stressful, really, really upsetting time. And actually, it's some of the women that I've met through the Women's Rights Network have been fantastic, because they're local. Like one of them just left some food on the doorstep for me, and sort of phoned me up and say, are you okay? And so it's bigger, as I was saying, sort of the friendship between women is profound, and it's been the massive silver. I mean, it's a golden lining, I would say, to this whole fight, is how we've almost rediscovered the power of the network of women that I think people, women knew about in the past, but we let it go because we didn't need it. Everything was one.
It's also about having the comfort of others, and that helps. As you said, being with somebody or having somebody else there to, bounce an idea off or something, that does make a difference as well. I remember, I can't remember when Helen Joyce's book was published, Trans, but when she published it, I watched an interview that she gave with somebody, and he had said, what now? What should happen? And she said, well, the problem is there's all these people with the right ideas, with the right desires, but there's no strategy. It's not done in a coordinated fashion. And I thought, well, that's what we can start doing. We can start doing it, the grassroots stuff. We can start coordinating it better. And there then became a shift in since the history of the network in 1 year. Because of our size, I think we began being noticed. We were asked to respond to a US paper. We've recently been asked to take part in an IPSO consultation. The Manchester Police are doing a consultation. They've asked local members to take part in it. So we're being taken seriously. Things have started to change and shift, and that is because of the noise we have made. And I'm working with Women Uniting and Sex Matters, the local election campaign, was a fabulous, was a godsend. It really was. When we knew we were going to do something, and Women Uniting knew they were going to do something, so we got that together and we made that something bigger. And then Sex Matters came in, and with Maya made it bigger still, and that made such a difference in terms of really getting us on the on the front page,
on the map. Yes, absolutely. But also I think it's given just women a feeling that they're actually contributing more than just sort of banging it out on Twitter, which is a contribution in itself. I mean, it massively is. You see people's arguments and ideas, and then you pick them up and you run with them. You learn a huge amount. But it's given, I think it's given people or women a sense of empowerment, a sense of feeling that they're actually doing something, because there's been this massive frustration, isn't there? And I think this is what you're alluding to now with an actual targeted campaign, which was the Respect My Sex one. It gives you a feeling of, okay, so this is what we're going to do. This is what we are now concentrating on. And I have a task at hand, and lots of people can join in, lots of women can join in. And it's been brilliant. I felt so empowered just doing something physical in a way that I hadn't necessarily done before. I mean, I'd been doing a lot of things, lots of this, lots of talking, but just having like a leaflet in my hand and putting it through letterboxes, or going to the hustings and, trying to ask questions, but we weren't asked. In fact, we just caused a bit of a stir.
It was good fun to watch.
Yeah. But I think it has empowered so many women who have felt that they wanted to contribute but didn't know what to do. I think it has finally become an actual coordinated movement.
Yeah. And Les, there are criticisms sometimes. It's not just me. I don't make all the decisions. That might be debatable. I've got a strong input, obviously, because I had an idea to start up, and I thought, we've got to be clear what we're looking for here and not go off on all different tangents. We've got to, have straight lines of what we're going to make an issue about and what we're not going to make an issue about. And we've got a fabulous team. So the network, we've got a number of different groups set up to support the network. We've got a web team. We've got a Twitter team. We've got a social media team. We've got a press team. So these are all functions that help support everything that the network does. We've then got groups. Now, these are cross-sector groups. So to join the network, you need to be in one of our geographical groups. And there must be about 70 now. I'm not exactly sure right now. So you have to be in one of those geographical groups, and that's where it's Twitter-based only at the moment. Still, but there's a degree of screening, because we have to be very careful who we allow in to the groups, and that frustrates some women. But at the end of the day, if anybody has a complaint about it, I just have to say we've got to be careful. We've got to look out for protecting women, and most people understand that because they've seen some of the stuff that goes on.
Yes, because you have people's personal details, addresses, and names. So of course you have to be careful. I mean, I think everyone understands that. It's terrible that we are still in a fight where we do actually have to be careful about the fact that people have women's names, because that's how bad it is.
That is just hurts me so much. That's one of one of the main things I really want to get stopped, for the women to not to worry about this anymore. That particular aspect. We're getting closer. Every day it's getting closer. We'll talk about some of the recent things.
And the more women that join, and the more women that join, the more women feel empowered. The more that the world wakes up to the fact that it isn't, as the narrative is still continually trying to be pushed, but honestly it's crumbling, that it's just a few extreme right-wing agents of the patriarchy, and you're like, yeah, not so much, man.
I know, it's very funny, isn't it? Well, I'll just finish what I was saying. So alongside them, we've got a legal group, research group. So alongside those functions that support the things that we're doing. We've also got subject focused groups. So that's a group looking at the police and what are the issues and how we could best do a campaign against the police or do an FOI, whether it's an out campaign that everybody gets involved in or a small campaign. Prisons, teachers, parents, sports has been excellent. They've had some great outputs.
Yes.
And those are great. Those groups are people that have got subject specialist knowledge of some sort, and they come together and they decide kind of a strategy of what we could do. So it's not me that's suddenly deciding we need to do this campaign, but they come to us and say we've got these ideas, and then we look at what resources we might be able to pull together to support some of the actions that happen. So it's a very broad chart. If any of the network members are watching, or people that become network members are watching, there is a whole host of things to actually roll your sleeves up and get involved in if you have the time and space. And not everybody does, as we said earlier, not everybody does all the time have that time and space to do it.
That's interesting. Actually, I hadn't really considered the fact that, of course, there is that level of coordination and thought, isn't there? Going, what are we going to look at next? Because I've only really been participating on I'll do some legwork, have a bit of a chat type level, but of course, to make it work effectively, you do need these ideas of direct targeted campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. You do, and I don't have the time to come up with all the ideas that we come up with. I've come up with a couple in the past, but it's good. So, for instance, teachers, we've got a group of people in the network, across the network, that are teachers or retired teachers or have some input, and they would apply to join the teachers group. And if they satisfy the criteria needed to join the teachers group, then they would join, and together they would decide, these are the issues. These are the big issues, and this is how best, or this is a small issue that might have big impact. That's what we're always looking for. Prisons is excellent. We've got a fabulous group, and they've got a whole strategy going. Now that works alongside KPSS, and they liaise really closely with KPSS, but it's not following KPSS. It's quite a different tack on it that we think.
But that's brilliant in itself, because then you've got a two-pronged approach going on the same issue. That's fantastic.
So we're looking to work with all sorts of groups. I don't want to work against anybody. I want to work with everybody. I don't want to duplicate things. So, for instance, we had a chat with Safe Schools Alliance about some things, and we want to work together with them. We don't want to duplicate anything they're doing or stand on their toes. So we make sure that everything's out in the open and working well. So, and I just want to show off something, because as you said, somebody came round with some food for you when you were going through your recent troubles. I've had quite a lot of troubles. I think most people probably know I've had quite a lot of troubles, and my lovely friends in my team that work with me closely sent me this. Look at this fabulous. It's a whiskey. I'm a whiskey drinker, and this fabulous whiskey bottle. Tiptoe through the heather.
Oh, that's fantastic!
And you see, there's quite a bit. We go on. It's very strong, and I want to say it's absolutely gorgeous. And thank you very much to the girls.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah,
that's such a lovely idea. And again, yes,
it's too early for now for a whiskey. So I'll stick to the.
Yeah, right. It's just a wine glass, isn't it? So you said there are about 70 groups. Do you know how many individual women approximately that is?
Well, at the last count, I mean, I do. There's only one member that knows everybody that's in that knows who they all are, and that's me. And so it's very secretive. Nobody else knows. Has access or could know absolutely everybody. And it does mean that I've got to sit down and spend about 20 minutes to do a full count. And I'm afraid I haven't done that quite recently. The last count was, I think, 1,130. It was in that region. So I do need to do another count. Now, those are Twitter, women on Twitter. And we've got the website going now. We've had huge numbers of people subscribing to the website, people that aren't on Twitter and don't want to be on Twitter. And quite frankly, if somebody joined Twitter to join us, they might have difficulty joining a group because, of course, what Twitter users know. If you have a history on Twitter,
okay,
you can demonstrate your credentials. But that doesn't. We would still have we encourage our coordinators to have a face-to-face or a Zoom meeting with people joining. So we're coming up with a process to get non-Twitter people into local groups with security. So
it's difficult logistics, isn't it? I hadn't really considered that. Because you do have to be careful, yet you don't want to be too restrictive.
Yeah.
You want to strike that sort of balance of allowing women in, but to preserve their privacy, really,
yes.
and sort of anonymity.
And at the end of the day, it's got to be up to the local group whether they take somebody or not. I mean, we've got some guidelines, and it's not up to, it can't be up to just one person to decide they don't want somebody, because you might just not like the color of their hair or something. That's too flippant, but
I know the cut of their jib.
Yes. And so we do have that, but at the end of the day, it's not a club you pay a membership to. It's nothing like that. So it's got to be whether the existing group, local women, are happy with that person. I certainly can't override what the group decides to do, and whether they decide to get involved in something or not. All I can do is facilitate it. So I see ourselves as grand facilitators of that.
You must be. This must have changed your life to some extent. You must feel very proud of being of starting this and of being part of it. It must have given you something really, I don't know, just something to be proud of.
Yes, you'll make me cry now. My life changed when my husband died, Helen, about 18 months ago, and I spent 4 or 5 months crocheting and knitting and not leaving the house. That was still COVID, of course. This is one of the things I did.
Oh wow, that's actually really quite beautiful.
I just made animals, and this came along. And my father died also in that time.
Oh, Heather, I'm so sorry.
My mother got dementia, so it was all downward. And this came along, and it actually did change my life. So earlier, when I said it gave me something to get up for, it really did. It kind of saved me. I don't know how I would have got through the year without this to concentrate and focus on. So I'm very proud, but I actually don't really stop to stand back and look at it.
Well, that's such a touching story, really. I'm glad that you got this, and I'm glad that you have done it, and I'm glad for you, but also for all of us, because it really has given everyone something. Like I said, it's helped me with now that my father is ill, just that local support, women just phoning me up and saying, because also now I've got a dog, because I've taken my father's dog. I've not had a dog in London, and one of the Women's Rights Network came along and she said, "Yeah, those are not the doggy bags, and no, this is London. You're going to have to pick up poo all of the time. This is not the food." It's brilliant. It's just just advice and friendship.
It is invaluable. Yes, it is invaluable. It really is. I've made such fabulous lifelong friends, brilliant women. I'm sure I would have been friends with them all in real life had we ever met, but our paths probably would never have crossed. And also in another world, when you're prioritizing other things, I also, combined with this, it was COVID. I'd lost my job. I didn't have work. It wasn't my choice not to have work, but it was because I'd been caring for my husband, and I didn't have work. And I still have an active mind and a desire to do things and be useful, and to do this, and to have met such fabulous women, and to have the responses that we get are just overwhelming. I get messages from people saying, how glad the things that you've just said, Helen, how it's come along, and it's been really good to talk to people at last and to feel more comfortable. And, and at the same time, the culture of the fight is shifting in our favor. When we started this, when it started, the Women's Rights Night, well, before it was, I don't think it was even the Women's Rights Night until October. I think we were still shoppers up till then, actually. But when it started in July last year, the landscape was very different. It was very, very different. And it's completely changed bit by bit.
Hasn't it?
The bricks are falling, and
they are, but this is part of it, isn't it? That weight, that might, that pushing. We've been pushing, or as Jane Clare Jones has always said, pull, and there are so many more women joining in and pulling. And with that, we've got to talk about today.
Yes,
the breaking news that the Tavistock is closing. That is a phenomenally.
I mean, really, how many of us really thought that would happen? I mean, we wanted it to happen. And I think in our minds, we knew that one day it would. But for it all of a sudden to go today is magnificent. And I would have loved to have been fly on the wall in some of the conversations that went on about that. Wouldn't that have been good? And is this to preempt more bad stories coming out? Does this stop more court cases because there's no one to sue now?
Well, yes, there is. I would, we were talking, and we had an emergency mess we're in earlier because everyone was just, we've got to talk about this. And we had Dennis on, Dennis Kavanagh, and he had some quite good insight. But yes, that was one of the things that we were talking about. Does this mean that there will be no closure for a lot of families who presumably will realise that because now the Tavistock, it's the cast review. The cast review is obviously going to be really quite damning.
Yes.
This is like this to actually say you're going to close your doors rather than, okay, well, you need a little bit of change. It's done. I think it's a danger.
Yes.
It's dangerous. It's the most damning thing. And for years we've had all of this, puberty blockers, they're completely reversible, people just parroting that line, and we've been there shouting about how do we know? It's fairly obvious to me that if you're going to shout that something is completely reversible, you need to have absolutely robust evidence about this. Everyone knows this.
Yes.
And yet it's not been there.
But Helen, in your working life, as I do, you can't, if you're going to make a statement about something, you need evidence to back it up. And how on earth in the medical profession that this was allowed to happen without that evidence? I've worked on a lot of project management for government projects before, not health related, but everything is very, these are the key indicators. You've got to collect, and above all else, at the start of something, you've got to work out how you're going to demonstrate you've achieved the outcomes. How could this not have been?
I don't know how it became so ideologically captured. It seems astonishing. And even now that we know that the doors are going to be closed, there will obviously be questions. People will say, how did this even happen? And despite the fact that we've seen it for years, even my looking back now, I think, how did it happen? I can't understand it, despite seeing the fight every day, all the things that people were saying, the massive weight of, mermaids and Stonewall all saying that, it's all good, it's all fine, this is great, everything's reversible. If you don't affirm children immediately, would you rather have a live daughter or a dead son? All of this stuff, we've seen it all. And just I'm still amazed that it's happened, and I will look back and I'll think, how I still can't believe it.
My personal view is that this is ideology driven by bullies and enabled by cowards.
Yeah,
cowards have not stood up and said, "Hang on, this isn't right." you know, and I'm so pleased, and it vindicates probably, I hope it's starting to vindicate Graham Linehan for all his banging on. He has banged on about Tavistock, you know, till he's blue in the, I don't know, what do you get blue in? Blue in the tooth, I don't know. Long in the tooth, what is it?
Blue in the face, maybe.
But, you know, he has, along with others, finally Newsnight started doing their inquiries into it, and then it's taken the cast review. Now, people watching, and the women that are in the network and people that aren't in the network that are out there that have anything you have done, any document you've signed, any letter, signature you put in, that has all helped. It has all helped to get this to happen.
Yes, it's needed. It has needed every single voice, all of us who have been shouting and being silenced and have run the gauntlet and have supported others and have contributed to crowdfundings or crowdfunds. It's taken us all, and it has taken a huge amount of collective effort in the face of extraordinary abuse and, as you say, bullying and denigration. But yet it's been so clear to me that we're right, at least in asking for an evidence-based approach. Yes. Even if it turns out that puberty blockers is absolutely the right way to treat it, and they are completely reversible and everything's fine. Let's see that.
Yes, convince me, and then it's fine. It'll work. You know, hoping that combined with the outcome of Alison Bailey's case, which was just wonderful. So pleased for her, so pleased for everybody that, you know, put in a pound there. That was such a good outcome there. So brave of her to do it.
So brave.
Despite the difficulties that she'd had. Now, combined with that, so we've got that one saying, you know, businesses, companies, organizations, you don't take Stonewall's word for it, because you could get yourselves in hot water. Tavistock, look, all these things, suicidal ideation, all that stuff, look, it's being dismantled and shown. That's why we do have to make a noise about it, because we can't just let them close and make it.
No, absolutely. And even now is the time to redouble our efforts. You know, we can celebrate and say, okay, good, people have sat up and they've taken notice. So now we write 2 letters a week.
Yeah,
I think that was from the Shawshank Redemption, wasn't it? Now I write 2 letters a week. This is the time. This is the time to capitalize on it. Honestly, this has been a terrible week for Stonewall, with Alison Bailey, and they're championing of the Tavistock and of Mermaids. Yes, Mermaids has to go.
And just last week, you know, having a go at nursery schools for not transing 2-year-olds. I think they rolled back on that. But, you know, I'm hoping organizations like Girl Guiding, for instance, so, you know, they're in for quite a letter writing campaign just coming up. Local libraries buying in drag queen story hours. Hopefully these things will start to sink through, and they will start to think, well, maybe we need to think about this. You know, maybe we need to stand back about think like this before we start waving their flags for them. You know, and one thing I would love to do, I'd love to do a crowdfunder to get some lanyards that just say NHS and take them out and give them to everybody in the NHS so they can get rid of their rainbow ones.
So they, yes, it's been really
so angry. Helen, you've been with your father in his illness, and I was with my mother. Died just 6 weeks ago, I think it was. And it made me so angry when the nurses came in and they all had these bloody rainbow lanyards.
It's been a really sad thing, hasn't it? The almost the destruction of the rainbow, which was such a positive symbol for a few years. I mean, it really was. I completely embraced it. You know, at work I was proud to be an ally. I had my mugs and everything, and I felt it was something really positive and really excellent. And it's been so tainted, it's so tarnished, and it's such an upsetting thing to see. Because you're right, you see it now and you just think, okay, I have to be careful. I have to be careful what I say. And it's such a terrible symbol of oppression, isn't it? When you see something and you think, oh shit, okay, now I have to watch my tongue.
Yeah.
Have to sort of curb what I'm thinking, what I'm saying. They have been extraordinarily successful, the other side, not just the rainbow, the other side in really sort of push. It's such a bullying narrative, isn't it? That it's just, oh, my phone seems to be listening to me and says, I didn't understand. Well, it has been difficult to understand. The whole thing has been astonishing. I never thought that this could happen, that we seem to have gone backwards sort of decades.
None of us did think this would happen. I often say I spent my time breaking down gender barriers, and blue things for girls and pink things and dolls for boys, and trains for girls.
Me too.
To break this down, and all of a sudden, this was used to define whether my child might potentially have to have surgery, a cosmetic surgery on their genitals in the future. It was just the most absurd thing.
So absurd. But so the Tavistock ruling, I think, or the Tavistock, and I'm not going to call it a ruling. That was the key. But I think this is an absolute, the destruction of the Tavistock. It is done. Is a massive step in saying this is, in really recognizing it. I think it's one of the biggest things that's happened. It's still sinking into me. When I saw it earlier, I thought, wow, the Tavistock's closing. They're still, they have got other things in place instead, which they need, because they need to address all of these teenage girls who are suddenly identifying as men. They do need to address this, but they are hopefully, I think the idea is there that they will work closely with the mental health part of the NHS, that's they will address it that way holistically. I hope that they are able to do it and that they don't get captured by, ideology, etc., within these pockets. I would really hope that there would be such a great scrutiny.
Well, it's better. I think the words are multidisciplinary, and it seems to be that the idea is that there's multidisciplinary teams and they're part of other existing. So isn't it in the north? It's looking at the Alder Hay. So they're part of an existing bigger structure.
Well, and in London, they're going to be working with the Maudsley.
Yeah. So it's a bigger structure that will have more rigorous processes in place that will have to be abided by. That's all we want. All we want is to know that these children going in are being, are not being automatically affirmed and moved on to drugs.
Yes.
That's all we want. We want just, somebody talk to them properly about this.
Yeah, exactly. And like we've all come across, it's been such a difficult thing to express to people who haven't really taken much notice, because we want so little.
Yeah.
We really want so little. We just want some evidence-based approach. And most people think, well, that's what we do now in 2022. Everything is evidence-based. That we want evidence-based approach, and we want some women's sports, women's spaces. Yeah. We're not asking for much, and because there's the most enormous amount of pushback, it's difficult to convey. It's difficult to get across to people, isn't it? That actually we're asking for very little, because they can't believe that there's so much fuss over women asking for so little.
Well, because they don't. Well, as you said, they can't believe that in 2022 this is happening. And
yes,
to be honest, I didn't either. And when I saw it, now when I heard Magdalene Burns, and if there's any people out there that don't know who Magdalene Burns is, Google her on YouTube and watch some of her videos. She's sadly no longer with us, big loss. No. But she's got some great videos, and she was really making a noise about this a long time ago.
A long time ago.
But
time ago.
you can't. That can't be right. Surely that can't be right. And you investigate and find out, and it is, and then that leads you to something else and something else. And so when you talk to people that aren't as down this rabbit hole with us, I think it's important just to stick to one thing, you know.
Yes, yes,
sports.
because you can come across as an absolute lunatic
Yes.
because people, you're just so, there are so many things. There are
Yeah.
so many things that people are like,
Yeah, and it's too much for people's brains. They can, just get them on one thing. And you know, there are issues about pronouns, so make it a pronoun thing, because you know, how does it, what if people are deaf, or you know, they've got learning difficulty or speech problems? This creates a whole host of issues for them. So actually, it's not being inclusive. You're encouraging people to lie and tell untruths and not to believe the evidence of their eyes. And how can you equate that?
I do wonder now with the so we've got the Forstetter ruling, but now we've got the Alison Bailey one as well. I do wonder whether, well, first of all, the diversity champion scheme, I feel, has been really quite discredited here. See, I mean, Stonewall, they were like, well, we only gave them advice. You know, they were the bigoted, terrible employers who sort of had an awful atmosphere. They have not come out of it well at all. But I do wonder whether now would be the time to talk to employers and say, look, gender critical beliefs are, you know, we are allowed to raise concerns about pronouns, about all of this, you know, pronouns in your email, pronouns in your bio. It's tempting to sort of say, actually, this, I feel, you know, this comes from an ideology that is massively hostile to women's boundaries, and it's making me extremely uncomfortable. And I feel as if I should have a right to be able to say this, that it makes my working life smaller and less and stressful.
I think Sex Matters. I saw something that they put out. It was on Instagram. They probably put it across other social media as well. Which is, they've got letters ready to send to your boss. You know, do you want us, you know, tell us who your boss is, and we will send this letter telling them, you know, and it's in light of this, of the ruling. So I don't know what the letter says. I didn't get any further than that.
That's a brilliant idea. That's and like they did the same thing with the trans book.
Yeah.
You sponsor it and we will send it.
Yeah.
It's anonymous. God, women have had some brilliant ideas, haven't they? I'm so proud to be part of a network of women who are just amazing. We are like changing the world. What a brilliant idea.
Helen, once this is sorted, we will run the world. We will be running the world. We can't leave it to them any longer. They keep mucking it up.
Well, I think like we said at the beginning, we can never rest on our laurels again. And no. I would really hope that the generation of women coming up behind us, I know that despite what people say, oh, it's just, you know, they're just old dinosaurs, there are a huge amount of young women looking now and beginning to open their eyes. So I hope it sort of doesn't sort of die out with the dinosaurs, that this is something that will carry on, because this has been such a shock.
I really don't feel old enough to be a dinosaur yet.
No, but you know, we can use the word because of the...
Yes, the groups that I talked about, the sort of cross-functional groups that we've got, the geographical and cross-functional, we've got a young women's network in there where we've put anybody under the age of 30 that wants to together in a group, because there are young people that don't want this to happen, that don't like this to happen. They've got a whole different set. There's also, if you hop on over to Women's Rights Network YouTube channel, you'll see a chat that I had with two of our young members about the differences in this fight when you're young, because they face social ostracization.
Yeah, absolutely, much harder for them, I would have thought.
The fight and so those that do come out and do say publicly, huge credit to them, because we think that some of us have balls, but they've got, I don't like,
Yes.
got a backbone.
No. Ovaries of steel.
Yes, ovaries. So just when you meet young people, I think, pause a second before you automatically assume that they're supportive of this ideology. They're not. Of course, a lot of them are, very disappointingly, but I like to think it's because they don't understand. They understand the be kind, or the kind of David Bowie thing when we were young. It was just
Totally.
Just be nice, just be okay. And also, would they have been safeguarded from their cradle? We have had cotton wool around them. We've got all these rules in place to keep them safe. They've never really, have they ever really had fear the way that we've grown up with, and all the things that have happened in our lifetimes that have created, or the need for safeguarding the way it is now? So we understand immediately why something is potentially.
Yes. Totally.
I don't think they understand quite as immediate as we. I mean, they do, obviously, if they think about it, but they've not got that immediate gut reaction to it.
No, of course.
They're rebelling against oldies.
Yeah, exactly. When I was young, I mean, even just for our children, or even when my children were young, I still, felt that I wanted to portray myself, maybe, or felt myself was, I was sort of a cool mother, but like you were saying, just blue. I'll dress all my kids in blue, or in boys' clothes, or traditional or neutral clothes, because I didn't want to be gender affirming or sex affirming, let's say. Yeah. But I do wonder, despite the fact that we know the problems that we face in speaking out, I do wonder, do I really appreciate how it is for younger women? Because, I say sort of flippantly sometimes, oh, Christ, I'm glad that social media or phones, sort of smartphones, weren't around when I was young, because, the photos, etc., that would have been taken of me. But they do have to live in this world. They do live in this world. They do have to be ultra careful. It must in one way be phenomenally stressful to be constantly on guard, in a way that I feel that we've never really had to do, especially when we were young. So I think you're right. I think it is interesting to have a younger women's network as well, because they do face very, very different
very different. And for many,
issues.
It's just easier just to ignore it and let it happen, rather than speak out and say, actually, have you thought about it this way? So, I've great sympathies, and I also have hope that that will change, and gradually some of these things. I mean, they don't read the Times, and they're not going to the Mail. They don't read newspapers. They get their news from TikTok and Instagram. So they're not, the things like how big this isn't going to really break through to them. But gradually, over time, I think they'll.
Well, although actually, I do feel that the TikTok might pique some women. I mean, I saw something that Feminist Row tweeted today, a TikTok of a chap maybe in his 40s, saying, "Oh, what a great thing it is now that I get to have a second puberty." And he was like a 40-year-old bloke, and he started talking about being a horsey girl and drawing pictures of horses, and they're talking about it in a very sexualized way, but also in a massively piss-taking, denigrating way, putting on a voice, being all like, "Oh, the braces girl." And I thought, genuinely, any young girl watching this would look at him and think, what an absolute
I don't
tosser.
know. I just think it's funny, for goodness sake. I mean, drag queen thingy on television, it's all over the place because they're big entertainment draws. Because
this was cruel. It was definitely a piss take. There was, I genuinely, I think, like, more of this, please, because this is just going to make young women think, no, this is not what being a young girl is about. I mean, it's not like men it was terrible.
But
So they do.
That's on their screen. They're never going to be confronted with this in real life. So it's safe.
No.
Let's do that and let's mock it. Maybe they do that, but they're never going to be confronted with that in real life. But I'm sure most of the most of the women I know have had experience of something happening in real life to them in their lifetime.
Well, this is one of the massive differences, isn't it? Is that the older women have got life experience. I mean, we've all got life experience. Some of us far more traumatic than others, but every single one of us has grown up, has lived a woman's life of constantly being wary in a way that men don't. But even but even as young women, it's kind of drummed into you, isn't it? I mean, you're not stupid. You don't walk home by yourself. But the older you get, the more you see, the more experience you have. But hopefully.
And they still do. I mean, the children of today get the same things. Don't walk home. They get taught how to deal with, don't go with strangers and those kinds of things. But I'm not, and I think they get a lot of pressure and problems from their own peer group now that we maybe had less of. We had problems outside our peer group. Really. So, I mean, it's an interesting thought, and that's one of the things that you would like to think that somebody should do is that what's causing this 5,000% increase in girls being referred to gender identity clinic? What's the cause of it? Can we unpick this? Because nobody's done that because they've not been allowed to. I mean, hopefully now that kind of thing might start happening, and we might be able to get a better picture.
Well, I think this is one of the massive sort of pickups of the CAS review, isn't it? Is that this has to be addressed, and of course, if it is a social contagion in one way.
Sorry, I think that's me. I don't know what's happened.
That was the caution.
Yeah, it was me. Sorry.
Okay, if it's a social contagion in one way, once that's addressed, then and people are aware of it. Just like anorexia. Once people were aware of what it is, and people can talk about it, and I think this is one of the huge things now. If this can be viewed as more than just you are who you are and affirmation only, then at least the youngsters won't necessarily just immediately say, oh, they are who they are, and it's bigoted to say anything else. It's society has to change its attitude around it for everyone to understand.
Yeah, and that's going to take a long time. We've still got so much work to do. Stonewall's still in government departments, still in organisation. This diversity champions thing still exists. We've got to keep battling at it and pulling the rug out from under it. So there's a long, long way to go. But we've had a number of good wins, and that makes everybody happy.
Yes.
Be positive, because I know we're nearly up now. So I'm trying to get cheerful again after.
Yes, well, we should be. I mean, this is.
And we've got our first birthday this weekend. And look out for our fabulous tweets that are going to be starting at 8:30 in the morning. And if you're a member, you will have been invited to come to our birthday bash in London, and there's numbers of others happening across the country. And do come, love to see you. And I'd love if Helen was able to come. But Helen, lots of love from the Women's Rights Network to you in the difficult times that you're going through at the moment with your dad. Huge sympathies, honey.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Give me your address, I'll drop one round.
Oh, that's so sweet. I think you're right. What a lovely place to end it. Heather, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a really interesting insight into the amount of the not just the sort of the positives of the WRM, but also the amount of work that goes into the back of it. Something I've really considered. So thank you so much. Here's to a good year and another good year, and in fact decades ahead. And thank you everyone for joining in the chat. I've been reading, and it's been lovely.
Good.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.